Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin, and joined with me, as always, my co-host, Ron. Ron, can you believe we've hit episode 99?
Even today, I was thinking 99 different times that we have, done all the coordination. As a lot of people know, you're in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in the East Coast. And from time zones to, Kristin getting her makeup done, it's
doing my own.
It's been so awesome. So congratulations, Kristin.
Yeah, you as well. It's
episodes.
Funny. As I was coming out here, my son was asking me what number it was because he just loves all that stuff. And I was like, 99. He's like, wow. So it is pretty cool. We're coming up on that milestone.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about episode 100.
Yeah,
we're going to do some cool things. We're going to have 2 mystery guests, but I'll give you a hint. They've been listening to this podcast since day one.
Yeah.
And we've never brought guests on before. And also, rumor has it, Kristin, there's going to be a blooper reel from our screw-ups.
I know. And I love how you're putting it together, where it's basically, we have zero say in what is being aired. Our producer has full say on what he ends up putting together for us. So,
but what we do have say in is Kristin and I are going to pick our top 20.
Yes.
And give you a little bit of, we're going to give you some of the quotes and some of the information. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. It's almost like Cliff Notes. If you did miss a few episodes, you'll get a lot of information. But we are very, very excited about episode 100.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's a landmark. When you hit 100, then that shows that you are a established podcast. And then hopefully we can get in some of the top ratings in the U.S. It's already gotten really good globally, but that's an exciting opportunity. It puts us in a whole new arena.
Yeah, it really does. And, kind of shifting towards what we're going to talk about today, though we're tackling a provocative and I would say timely topic, this is Donald Trump's proposal to create an ERS, the External Revenue Service. And, like the IRS, this is external, right? So we've seen this a lot in the news, and this is a bold plan that has sparked plenty of discussion. And today we're going to unpack that and unpack what that could mean for the American economy, tax policy, and beyond that.
Yeah, and Kristin, I'm going to start us off with a quick funny story before we delve into a little bit of information about the Internal Revenue Service. So in 2014, the government enacted sequestration, which means across the board, government agencies were cut like 14%. So I was literally on the phone an hour with the FBI Academy director. We're doing our woes because I was the chair of that board and I had everyone's number at that point. So we have a board meeting and we all go to lunch. So it's like me, it's like DEA, U.S. Marshals. I can't remember. There's a couple other agencies and the IRS. And the guy from the IRS happened to be a tremendous guy. His first name was Terry, just a nice guy. So we're kind of going around the table going, I'm not sure, I was U.S. probation. I'm like, it's going to do this, that. And we keep going around. And it got to the IRS guy, Terry, and he goes, yeah, we're going from and I don't hold me to the numbers, folks, but he's like, we're going from 36,000 agents down to 22,000. And the table went silent. No one said a word. But when everyone else spoke, we're like, yeah, man, I feel your pain. Hate to hear that.
Yeah.
He spoke. It went silent.
That's
and all
hilarious.
of a sudden, I looked at him and I go, Terry, we would like to care, but we don't. And the table exploded with laughter. We're pounding it. We got kicked out of the place. So we jokingly said, sorry, Terry, no one likes the IRS, not even federal law enforcement.
That's amazing. I like that story. It's true. It's so against our founding principle.
It was such a funny moment. All right. So the IRS was created during the Civil War under President Abraham Lincoln through the Revenue Act of 1862. Its primary goal was to fund the war effort by collecting taxes. Initially, it was a temporary measure, but as the federal government grew, so did the need for this permanent agency to manage tax collection.
But did it? I don't know. The 16th Amendment, though, in 1913 was a game changer. So it legalized federal income tax and expanded the IRS's role. So over time, the IRS became one of the most important, yet controversial, understandably, agencies in the federal government.
Yeah, and if you're in trivia, folks, this is really good trivia. So the next time someone asks me about time travel, I'm going to always say I would like to go back to 1912.
Yeah, there you go.
The year before the IRS.
Oh my gosh, seriously.
Got legally established.
Oh my gosh.
Let's not forget the challenges it faces today. According to Nina Olson, a former national tax advocate, the IRS is in the worst shape it's been in decades. Outdated technology, massive backlogs, and poor customer service are just a few of the issues. Some of its systems date back to the 80s, and the agency has millions of unprocessed tax returns from previous years.
Insane.
I mean, this is crazy.
Unacceptable. At least it should be. And, when we think about Trump's vision for the ERS, let me break it down a little bit. I mean, it is a bold vision. And he announced this on Truth Social. And he has described the ERS as a counterpart to the IRS. And its focus would be collecting revenue from foreign sources, hence the external, such as tariffs and duties. I'm all about it.
Yeah, Trump argues, that far too long, and I agree. America has taxed its own citizens to fund the global economy.
Yeah.
He says it's time for foreign nations and corporations benefiting from trade with the U.S. that they pay their fair share. And I know you've heard it, and people make fun of it. But Kristin, even in some of the early term papers I did, I realized, number one, we fund ridiculous stuff, but we also have just been pouring billions into all these nations, and even China. We help stabilize China, and now look what it's gotten us.
Yeah, I know. If people would just take a little time and research this, they would want to change as well. So this proposal ties directly into Trump's broader economic agenda. For instance, his Save America initiative, it includes reducing the size of government, cutting federal regulations, cutting that red tape, and streamlining inefficiencies. And again, this is like, I don't feel like the government has seen a vision like this in a long time. And that's the beauty of having someone who's a businessman. To help with these ideas, Trump has enlisted Elon Musk. He's a controversial character as well. And Vivek Ramaswamy to lead the government efficiency, or we're hearing it called DOGE, DOGE.
Yeah, I'm really anxious to see what they start developing, because I told you, I was a spec in this big mammoth federal government, and I saw waste, I saw fraud, abuse, all of that stuff. Not within my agency, but it was just amazing to me the way the government operates. They basically give you a certain amount of money. If you don't spend it, you lose it. You use or lose, and you just can't run a budget that way. So I hope they overhaul the way we implement budget, the way people get funding. You should be awarded if you're under budget, but in the government, you're penalized if you're under budget. So, that's really strange.
I know. I like at the bank, I remember one year everyone came in under budget, and so they divvied it up and did bonuses for the folks.
Exactly.
That's really makes a hell of a lot more sense.
Yeah. Anyway, the ERS,
Yeah.
the External Revenue Service, would work alongside existing agencies like Customs and Border Protection and the Commerce Department, focusing specifically on tariffs, duties, and other foreign revenue streams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to break down the role of tariffs in this ERS. So they play a central role in the ERS plan. So Trump has proposed imposing a 10 to 20% across the board tariff on imports, with a 60% tariff on goods from China and a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico. You like that 60 for China?
Yeah. And Kristin, do I think he's going to implement a 60% tariff? I do not. But I do think it's a great bargaining chip. And that's, you have to start, you start high and then you meet in the middle.
Exactly.
And, but he's made it very clear that China's not going to abuse us any longer. And that's exactly what they're doing. Not to mention all the intellectual property they steal from us. And they say they're not that innovative with technology. They steal from other countries and then they just build upon that. So it's been happening for years.
Yeah, sure has.
Yeah. Tariffs are essentially taxes on imports paid by the U.S.-based importers at the point of entry. And again, all these places put tariffs on the United States,
right?
But we just don't reciprocate.
It's insane.
So anyway, yeah, I'm supporting. And guys, I hope you get the leadership lessons of this. Thinking outside the box. You got to make good deals. You got to, you can't run in the red in your agency. Things like that.
I always like to say, run it like a business, not a nonprofit, but actually nonprofits have to be smart about what they're doing as well, right? Like my reference is because nonprofits, they're doing things because it's the right thing to do for different communities and people. But you either way, you have to be smart about where your money is going. And, you bring up an important point. So economists, including those from the Tax Foundation and the Cato Institute, have warned that higher tariffs could shrink the U.S. economy and reduce incomes. However, big however there, supporters believe the ERS could generate significant revenue to offset the tax cuts and spending plans. So that's where it's at right there. He wouldn't do this if it was going to be a negative overall. That just would not even make sense.
Yeah, and let's not overlook the broader implications. Tariffs have been a part of the cornerstone of Trump's, when he talks about economic policies, he rarely does anything without mentioning tariffs.
I think he said it's his favorite word. Like it's the most beautiful word in the dictionary.
The most beautiful word. The most beautiful word.
Yeah.
During his first term, the renegotiated treaty agreements like NAFTA and replacing it with the USMCA was just one of the things that he did. And then the second term agenda builds on this foundation with tariffs playing a key role.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk a little about challenges and criticisms. Again, you always have to look for these gaps, these potential gaps. So as ambitious as the ERS sounds, it does not come without challenges. So establishing a new federal agency is naturally going to require significant funding, resources, congressional approval. That's a big one. Critics are arguing that this could lead to more bureaucracy, not less.
Yeah, and then there's the issue of international relations. Of course, if you start imposing tariffs, it's going to strain some relationships for a period of time. But this is where leadership kicks in, folks. Like we will have to brace because there might be a few areas where prices go up because, when you got sweatshops making and children making goods in China and shipping them over here, it's hard to compete with, but it will be temporary until everything levels out. So I engage people to try to just, let's see what develops and work around this thing and look at the good of the country. Ask not what it can do for you. As John F. Kennedy said, we got to get things stabilized in our trade and in our economy in general.
Yes.
So,
I have to say, what you were just talking about, the children, my sister last night, we have a family night and she was like, oh, you want to see my Shein haul? And I know it's like this cheap brand from China where you can get things really inexpensive. And I'm like, oh my gosh. My mom's like, the kids that made that were probably tied to the sewing machines. And it's probably true. And that fast fashion, if you haven't heard of the term, or if anyone listening hasn't heard of the term, it's those cheap, inexpensive clothing labels out there. Shein, what's that other one that comes from China and everything's like, it's like shop like, yeah. Can you say that again?
Temu, all those funny memes.
Yeah. So that's another one. And I think their slogan is like shop like a billionaire. But, if you have to really think, how are they able to have these prices so low? And you don't want to know what you're funding on the other end. So, there's implications over there. Sorry to interrupt, Ron. I just had to bring up.
No, it's okay. Just go ahead and take it there.
Okay, sounds good. So, I mean, another thing that's on my mind is public perception. I don't know that, naturally, I don't care too much about what people think. But while supporters see the ERS as a way to shift the tax burden off of us domestic taxpayers, Critics, like Senator Ron Wyden here in Oregon, say it's essentially a hidden tax on American families. Hey, it makes sense for him to say that. But, I think to your point, Ron, I think that there will be a little bit. We'll feel it in the beginning. And then it's kind of like when there is the term inspect what you expect. So as a manager, when you're leading a team, you set expectations and you have to continuously inspect what you expect. The minute that you lay off and you stop with your expectations, the behaviors are going to go back for the majority of folks. Same thing here. If we expect an even playing field and for folks to pay tariffs just like we have to stay on that course. That trajectory needs to go in the same direction. And I think that's definitely what we're going to see over the next 4 years.
Yeah, and Kristin, in the coaching program, I have had 2 or 3 people that we basically decided they needed to rebrand themselves. They had already been kind of ostracized at work or labeled. So we work on rebranding, but I tell everyone we're turning a ship, not a boat. And of course, America is a huge, big entity.
Yeah.
And these things are not going to happen overnight. So I'm just telling people, brace yourself. There's going to be everything from protesters to critics to, the news media stuff. And they're going to make this sound like it's the craziest thing in the world. But just do your homework and look at how pathetic we have been in wasting money.
Right.
It's constant. Somebody's got to say time out.
Yeah,
Time out.
Exactly.
Anyway, to better understand the External Revenue Service, let's look at a little bit of the history of the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service. And I made that little joke in the beginning, but it's kind of true. Nobody loves the IRS.
I know. I mean, come on. Weren't they going to arm them at one point? Are they armed right now?
They do have. Well, that's why the board, you have to be law enforcement to be on the board, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Accreditation Board. And the IRS has a component of armed agents. So
I don't understand
not the
that,
general IRS agent, but they do have a law enforcement arm that works with other law enforcement, and they make arrests like other agencies.
Okay.
So we know it was established during the Civil War, and probably they had to do it at that particular time, just because they were broke and were fighting the Civil War.
Yeah.
But as the nation began to grow, then they had to solidify this. So could the ERS follow the same pattern or path?
I don't know. You never know. Well, other countries also offer lessons. And I highly recommend folks look into that. So some have specialized agencies for handling IRS issues or international tax issues. And, while their successes vary, they provide valuable insights for the U.S. So that is not being ignored. And, going a little more on public opinion and the political landscape. So public opinion on the ERS is sharply ERS, I don't know if I said that right, is sharply divided. And so we've touched on that, but supporters view it as a necessary step. And, like we both said, we're both in support of it, but there could be some pain points in the beginning. I think that happens with a lot of things. And like I was talking about accountability, it's important that we're holding these foreign entities accountable. And, really the detractors, their fear is that it could lead to higher consumer costs. We've touched on that, and that could happen. The greater government overreach, that's another concern that we're seeing out there. I don't even understand how that could even be an issue. So we're seeing that being raised as a concern on the other end. But actually, if you think about it, it's going to close a gap right now. We're overtaxed, and it's not how it was ever intended to be. So we're really looking for ways to take the burden off of us, not add it to us.
Yeah. And, with Justin Trudeau stepping down, I listened to Pierre Poilievre. I think that's the way you pronounce it. He's the incoming prime minister. And people think there would be outrage. So they ask him, what do you think about Trump's tariffs? And he understood why Trump's doing it. He said, so I want to get rid of these regulations. So I have negotiation power with him to make both economies wealthy. But he certainly didn't say he better not threaten us with, He knew that he needs to be in a position of strength, just like Trump is.
Right.
So I found that very interesting. I don't know what Mexico is saying yet, but this is such a necessity. What this boils down to, Kristin, is we either want to build a strong global network and let everyone else prosper, or we need to focus on America.
Right.
And I can assure you, this is not about politics for me. If this idea had been generated 4 years ago, I would have said, wow, that's creative.
Yeah.
I would have been excited. But that definitely was not the case. It was all of the, let's keep driving America down. Let's keep spending.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing. So politically, what I'm saying
it
is,
just popped in my mind, Ron. Do you remember Cash for Clunkers that Obama did?
I do, but I can't remember details.
I feel like that's the last time anyone was excited about a Democrat doing something.
Yeah.
Basically, you trade in an old piece of crap and you get some cash towards a newer vehicle. Sorry, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, I thought that was toward clean vehicles, but maybe it was then.
I don't think so, because I don't even think electric vehicles were much on the radar.
I would have traded in some family members had I known. So politically, what I was saying is Trump's got an advantage, holding these tariffs over people's heads. And then Republicans have a majority in the Congress. So it literally may gain traction. I mean, this may come to pass. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out with, the support of it, but also the potential roadblocks.
Yeah, it will be interesting. And, tying leadership into this, we're coming to the end here. But, when you think about the ERS, it's a bold and innovative proposal. I mean, let's think of it just from a leadership standpoint. It promises to address key issues that we're facing as a nation, key issues in international taxation. Its success will depend on careful planning, of course, and execution. But it's bold, like I said, and I think that is what we need right now. And I do think fortune favors the bold.
It really does. And Kristin, we've got solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, we got small businesses that listen to us. So this is huge. This is mammoth. But I sat down with our media director that and we began to plot this year for my company. And the bottom line is, and I met with someone else who asked me some business questions. I said, what are you willing to put in? Are you going to purchase ads? Are you going to get Google ads? Are you going to buy ads through Facebook, LinkedIn? And people tighten up. You can see it. And I used to do the same, but I have realized that you got to get bold. And if you want to grow, you got to put yourself out there. And this is a bold idea, whether, there may be intricacies that we don't know. We don't pretend to be the expert on the External Revenue Service, but we can certainly research and we can look into things to see how they might work. But God, Kristin, there's something about me that I just love big, bold, in these creative ideas. Yes. I love it. I always have.
I'm the same way.
So I'm wanting to follow suit a little bit.
Yeah, it almost gives you butterflies. For anyone that started their own business or just they're going out of their own, it's risky, but you get these butterflies, right? It's like this it's a great feeling. You feel alive, and because it's on you.
And guys,
the outcome is on you.
Yeah, we'll provide more information. But before we even started recording, Kristin and I were talking about different opportunities that have finally come to us. And it didn't happen. We got a lot of response to the very first podcast. But sometimes you just have to keep working that garden and waiting on the harvest. And there's that's the difficult part. Everybody wants the end result. They want the harvest, but they don't want to do the hard work in between. So there's some really cool things coming up. And Kristin, what episode is this again?
We are on 99. So we know it's right around the corner.
But a podcast ain't one.
I love it. Yeah, I'm excited for our 100th episode. Don't forget, it's next week. We broke down the beginning, what we're going to be doing, what the layout will look like. I can tell you that the guest I'm bringing on is very pumped up, and I'll say they, so I don't even give gender. They have already put so much effort into it. I'm like, you don't have to do that much, but awesome. Thank you. So they're pumped. So that'll be really fun.
Yeah. And the person I'm bringing on, as you know, has been closely affiliated.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be cool.
I am looking forward to it.
All right, folks. So please begin to tell people about the 100th episode, because we're going to do that little recap of a bunch of the other episodes. So it'd be a great time to tune in.
Yes.
But please subscribe, leave a review. Anytime that you rate the podcast, all of these things are kind of like capital building up. And Kristin and I went into this so that it would grow. And we both have a growth mindset. And we do want to compete with other podcasts, because we think we're doing something different and unique. So if you agree with us, please help support us. We would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, very much so. All right, you guys. Ron, I won't take your line.
You can do it.
Be the leader you were meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.